Do you believe in unconditional love?
Oh my God, that's a great question. I am so glad and I might actually cry too. So you might want to get like a roll of TP or a whole box.
Dude, we're busting out the estrogen in here
yeah,
tonight.
the fellas
All I know is that the title of this podcast is Two Grown Men Crying.
right, two grown men cry. Right.
We're having a bromance over here tonight.
That's it. No, I'm so like that's probably to me one of the most awesome questions because this touches me from my childhood. So here's another story. I was adopted. I grew up in a very upper middle class family. My dad was probably the absolutely most unconditionally loving person I've ever met in my life.
Your dad.
My dad. My dad passed away of Alzheimer's about 9 years ago. And before he was a brilliant attorney, awesome man. And before he passed away and got into that thing where, he just didn't even know where he was, who he was, those kinds of things. I was able to pray with him a lot, talk to him. He prayed to receive the Lord, that kind of thing. And when he was in the home, he literally told me like 4 times, "Matt, you're my hero." And
awesome.
That was just something like he would be kind of off in his thing, and then all of a sudden he'd look over and he'd go, "Matthew, my boy." And we'd talk about something and I'd, be talking to him about God or something, different things. And he goes, "But Matt, you're my hero." And I'm telling you, man, that got me.
That's huge.
Now, my mom, and let me qualify this. I get along great with my mom now. I love you, Mom. You are awesome. And we have reconciled so much over so many years. But I'll share something that was really difficult. I was 16 years old, and I was a shit disturber, okay? I mean, I was a little shit.
You?
Right?
No.
Yes. I was running around doing stuff, just getting in trouble and messing around with girls and all kinds of stuff. So my mom comes into my room one night. I'm 16 years old, and she's got a big butcher knife, and she's hot, and she's cutting the phone line and coming at me and all this different stuff. And I just was like, that's it.
A butcher knife.
Put my motorcycle helmet on, climbed out the window, got on my bike, never went back. Been on my own since I was 16 years old.
Holy shit, man.
So my mom told me.
High five.
My mom told me, though, several times, I don't believe in unconditional love. And she would tell me that many, many times throughout our discourse. By the time I was about 8 years old, we really started having some issues with my mom. And I think I'm not a psychologist, but I play one on TV. But
apparently I do too.
Right.
On social media.
But I think I was adopted. I think at the time it really was fulfilling to her. She adopted me and my sister, and it fulfilled a purpose. And then when things started getting really, really hard for her, with my behavior. So like I said, this isn't just her. I mean, I was a problem.
Sure. Mm-hmm.
So then I think instead of, being able to tap into that unconditional love, and what we're talking about earlier is that agape love. And the only way that we can even operate in that is by God's grace. That's it. By the power of His Spirit and by His grace. So, if you're not a real Christian by having a relationship, it's very difficult to do that. It's impossible to do that. So my mom, at that time, we were raised Catholic, and not that anything against Catholics, that the Catholics can't be filled with the Holy Spirit. I know there are born-again, Spirit-filled Catholics. We weren't. We were, I can play dominoes better than you can. That kind of thing. So sit, kneel, stand. It was
we used to have this thing in my house. We can catch more fish than you can.
So it was just a formality. It wasn't
so
a real
awesome.
relationship. I say all that to say, so can people love unconditionally or is it conditional? I have experienced unconditional love in my life from many people, from God, from Christ, from my dad, and now my mom and I are getting along really, really well. I think that the closer that somebody's relationship is with God and understanding that the things that we do and the things that separate us from being close to Him, And when we realize that we are really, truly forgiven, and when that hits you, I remember when I first became a Christian for years, I would just be on my knees during worship, just wailing and weeping and crying because he was so good. And I had done so many bad things. And I deserved punishments and hell and all these things. And yet, if God wanted to kill me, I had a motorcycle accident in November
90.
November 20th, 1990. And so, that was the place. I grew up Catholic, and not all Catholics teach this or believe this. This was my feelings, that this God was in the sky just wanting to beat me down, and a lot of that was because of my own stuff that I was doing. And then when I was laying there in the middle of the highway looking up, and the truck ran over my chest, and I survived all that stuff, I'm like, okay.
I didn't know any of this.
Oh, yeah. I mean, that's a whole nother show. But that was my come to Jesus moment. Now, it took about 2 years. And my dad...
Yeah, it was almost your
really
come to
was.
Jesus moment.
It really was. And my dad was in this thing called Emotions Anonymous. It's the same 12 steps as EA or NA, but it's just called EA.
Yeah.
And I got in that, and that started my journey to get me to a place where I really found a relationship with God. So can people love unconditionally? I think absolutely. But we're flawed, and people can never love perfectly. They can love unconditionally. But the only person that can love perfectly is the one that demonstrated that absolute perfect agape love on the cross. That's it.
Yeah.
There's no other person but the person of Christ. But we are to emulate that. And that's the whole thing, like what Bobby was saying earlier. Sorry if I'm getting preachy. But what Bobby was saying earlier
Preach, man.
is that, we have issues, we have problems, okay, but we're striving, and that's the whole thing. God knows whether you're playing games, with him or not, just like women know if we're playing games. They can sense it, they can smell. God knows.
Oh, they can.
If you're not real with God, and you're not really truly like, okay, I screwed this up, or I'm caught in this thing, or I'm caught in this sin, or I'm doing this thing, and yet it's ripping me apart, Lord. I hate it.
Yeah.
I hate what I am doing because it's causing enmity between you and me, then yeah, it's kind of like the thing earlier about, like telling the truth to somebody. I hate that we're having this problem. I hate that, we're not being able to reconcile this issue. I want so much so because I love you, let's get into this and figure this out.
Yeah.
Because I'm away from you, because I'm doing whatever I'm doing, and it's causing me to be not under your grace and under your unconditional love, then you know what, God? Help me. I need you to help me. I'm doing the best I can, but I'm asking you to help. And so, anyway, yes, I believe in unconditional love, and it's the greatest. But that's that agape love. And we need to strive for it, and we need to try to emulate it, and that's a lifelong walk. That's a lifelong walk to walk that out.